Oh, for me, there's not much better than that first cup of coffee at camp. And making coffee at camp, now, there are a million ways to make it. Slight exaggeration, I know. And everybody has their favorite. You can go minimalist, an AeroPress, or what we normally do, instant coffee, just to save space and weight. But I will tell you, when you have a group of people and you want to make coffee and everybody wants to have their cup of coffee at the same time, there's one tried and true method that we have used for a long time. And I want to tell you about that today and show you how to do it, because the percolator seems to be one of those items that has, to a large extent, the knowledge of it has gone by the wayside with history. But it's a great way to make coffee at camp, and I think more and more people are rediscovering it. So let's talk about a percolator for the campsite. So this is our tried and true camp percolator that we've had for years and years. And there are many advantages to a percolator. One is they come in different sizes. So therefore, if you have a large group, you can make a big pot of coffee and jack up a lot of your friends first thing in the morning without everybody having to do their own thing. And I think that's really the main advantage. Number two, you can make exceptionally good coffee in one of these. So what is a percolator? What is it? In reality, it is sort of the predecessor to the modern drip coffee maker. So let me show you the components of the percolator and how they work. So the three main components of a percolator is the water pot, and it has a clear sight glass on top, and you'll see what that's for. As you can see, it's just an empty pot. The coffee basket, which is a two-piece unit. You put your coffee here, and the tube. And this really serves to bring the water up to the top of the percolator and drip it over the coffee grounds back in. The main difference between a percolator and the modern drip coffee maker is, however, that as you can see, since this is not a separate coffee pot and water tank, the coffee that's being brewed is constantly going back over the grounds because it recirculates the water. And what that means is you can get a very nice, hearty cup of coffee, but it also means if you do it wrong, and I see a lot of people do it wrong, is that you can end up with acrid, bitter coffee very easily. Now today, I'm going to show you how to brew in a percolator, but I'm not going to use our trusty old one. I've got something better so that you can see how this process works. Meet our trusty, vintage, Pyrex glass percolator, which has all the same components that I just showed you in our camp percolator, but they're all glass and they're going to allow you to see how this process actually works. So let's make some coffee in this percolator and we'll show you the correct way to use one. And believe it or not, this pot and our camp pot are both 9-cup pots. Now remember, coffee industry uses 6 ounces for a cup, not 8. And a lot of times these don't go true to size, so don't expect 9 mugs of coffee. So the first thing that we do is we fill this up, and we're going to fill this up to the 9-cup line, which is just under the silver ring. Handy Stanley growler. For the coffee, since this is 9 cups, we're going to use about 7 scoops of coarsely ground coffee. This is important. You want this coffee ground similar to what you would use for a French press. I do not use a filter in my drip pan. Some people do. I don't think it's necessary if you ground your coffee right. So we're going to just put the coffee into the pot. Something else to keep in mind, you don't fill this all the way up. As you can imagine, once coffee gets wet, it starts to expand. So this does not need to be filled to the top. I have seen people do that. You want to make sure you don't do it. I just shake it around a little bit. I drop this directly into the water. Whoops. Guess I need the lid. Put the lid back on. Now we're ready to get this on the fire. All right, we're ready to put the pot on the fire, and one important thing, and this is where I see a lot of people get this wrong. You put this on a medium heat. You don't jack it up. Put it on medium heat and let the water slowly come to temperature. And we'll show you what happens when it does. But coffee doesn't like to be boiled. Boiling water brings out bitterness in coffee. I think the standard coffee industry temperature is 203 degrees. That's what they like to brew coffee at. So you don't want this thing boiling and over extracting the coffee. And that's where I see a lot of people get this wrong, and why they come up with really nasty coffee in one of these is that they boil their water and they keep it boiling. So we're going to bring this up to temperature at a medium heat, and we're going to let this start to go up, and thermodynamics will take the water up the tube, and we'll show you that, which is the beauty of this glass percolator. All right, our water is starting to come to temperature, and as you can see, I hope you can see it, the bubbles are being sucked into the tube and are starting to go up the tube. And that is what's going to take the water up and start the drip process. Now we're not there yet, but I just wanted to show you kind of what it looked like when it started to perk. Okay, we're getting very close now. You can see as the water is pushing up through the tube, you're starting to get near the top. We're just now starting to see the perk and percolate happen. As you can see, the water's come up through the tube, it's hitting the top of the glass, and then it's being spread around the grounds. So that is the percolator going, and pretty soon, once the grounds saturate, we're going to start seeing the coffee come down into the main water pot. And here we go. You can see the coffee starting to be brewed, and this is what I meant by the coffee is constantly circulating through the pot. Now, once this perk gets going, it's important, turn down the heat. Again, you don't want too much heat on this. You want this water to be percolating but not boiling. All right, I think we're at the point now where we're going to turn this down a little bit. We want to see a perk about every second or so. It may not be manageable for you, but as close as you can get to that, you just don't want to get it too hot. So we've turned the fire down. We're going to adjust the pot. We're not at an even spot right here, so we want to make sure it saturates all the grounds. So we'll rotate it. Once this starts happening, we're going to go 7 to 10 minutes. If you like stronger coffee, go a little longer. If you like weaker coffee, go a little less. And instead of trying to put more or less grounds in, just extract it a little bit longer or shorter. Now this stove is too hot. We can't turn it down far enough. You can see we're getting a little more action in the pot than we wanted, so I've just basically slid it off. So I'm only going to get about half to a quarter of the burner hitting the bottom of the pot. All we're trying to do is slow down this boil. As you can see, we have had to move this quite a ways off the burner to keep it from boiling too aggressively. So this is not a setup that we normally use at camp, the Pyrex with this camp stove. Once you get to know your equipment and how hard it boils, this becomes second nature. But on this one, we've had to move it quite a ways off. We're still getting a good perk. We've slowed down any sort of boiling. We've got a pretty good simmer going now. Probably would like to see it a little less than that in a perfect world, but we are about done here. That is the 7-minute mark. So next step is really important. Take it off the fire and let it set for a few minutes, because you want to let any grounds that made it through that filter basket sort of settle to the bottom, because nobody likes to eat coffee grounds while they're enjoying their morning cup of coffee. And while we're waiting for the coffee to settle, camera lady pointed out that clearly I am a nerd for Stanley products. I've used Stanley products for years and years and years. My first thermos was a Stanley, and as you can see, I continue to trust the Stanley brand, from my thermos to my growler, my coffee cup. Heck, even the little container that we put our coffee in is from Stanley. By the way, Stanley should never have stopped making these. They're awesome. So anyway, just thought that was funny. One other thing I did forget to mention. This is great not only for a crowd, but also if you're breaking camp and you're taking off, you've got enough coffee now to fill your thermos for the ride. So that is a benefit of a percolator, that it makes enough coffee that you have some at camp and to go. So let's see how this one tastes. Tastes like coffee. I will admit I'm not a coffee nerd, and I do admit that every brewing type has a bit of a distinct difference in the way it tastes, but I think that you will have coffee people enjoying this cup of coffee all day long. So again, if you're at camp, you want to make a decent amount of coffee, you don't want to have a lot of waste. We don't have anything here to throw away. There's no paper filters, anything that has to be tossed. You do have to wash it, so that is one thing that maybe you don't have to do with some of the other methods. But this is a great alternative. You should try it. It's not magic, and it's not something that you should shy away from. And if you like this type of content, please share it with your like-minded friends, give us a thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button. And as always, we'll see you outdoors. Maybe I'll even pour you a cup of coffee.